it is decision day for the Supreme Court as the justices head into the final weeks of the term. We are still waiting to hear opinions on some of the most consequential cases on the docket. But the justices issued a ruling against a Louisiana man who wanted to sue officials for cutting his locks in prison. Let's get to CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford. Jan, once again, we get to talk to you about this. So tell us about this particular ruling and what it could mean for other prisoners claiming religious rights.
Hi, Mugo. Well, this was one of 4 rulings from the court today, which means all the big cases are still remaining. We've got 12 or 13 left, depending on how you count them. We'll have another decision day on Thursday. So we're waiting on some of the ones we've been following, but let's talk about this one first. This involved a man by the name of Damon Landor, and he was a devout Rastafarian. And as a result of his religious beliefs, he did not cut his hair. His dreadlocks, in fact, went really almost down to his knees. He was arrested and sent to jail for minor drug possession, got 5 months. And so he argued, and he had a copy of a court opinion, that he was protected by federal law from having to shave his head. And everyone agrees that the law was clear, that this law protected the religious rights of prisoners. But prison officials in Louisiana didn't care. And they shaved his head anyway. And so he sued. Everyone agrees that was egregious what those prison officials did. But the question is, in his lawsuit, can he recover money damages against those prison guards under that federal law? And today, in a 6-3 decision, conservatives divided, the liberals split there. The justices said no, that law, Congress could have made it clear that he was entitled to money damages, but they didn't. And so he isn't able to recover. Again, not necessarily kind of the most satisfying result when everyone agrees that this is, something that the prison guards should not have done. They violated his rights under that federal law, but there was no remedy for it. This was one, by the way, that the Trump administration lost. They were supporting the prisoner in this case, and I think that may kind of get us into the next few days of opinions when the Trump administration is going to have a couple more losses. Mugo.
Yeah, and speaking of that, as we near the end of this session, there's still several major cases, whether we're talking about the birthright citizenship case or even the cases that could affect the president and his power. Can you walk us through what else we're still waiting for? The big ones, apparently.
I would say of all the cases, and they really kind of got rid of all the underbrush today, except for the Landor case. But, they're important cases, but they're not the ones that are going to have this big sweep that we're expecting with the ones that are left. But of the ones that are left, I would say there's 4 or 5 that are major implications that we're closely following. You said the first one, birthright citizenship, whether President Trump can redefine what it means to be a citizen in this country. I think he's going to lose that one. I think the court's going to rule that no, he can't. And then there's a big case involving transgender rights and whether states can ban transgender athletes from participating in girls' sports. Obviously, a very hot-button cultural issue. I expect the court there to rule for the states and say that those state laws are okay. And then finally, the other one, the big 2 that are left is kind of Trump's power or a president's power to fire some of those federal officials, whether they're at independent federal agencies like the Federal Trade Commission or another case, the Federal Reserve Board. And in that one, I think the court's probably going to split the difference. They're going to say that Trump and other presidents before him, including Joe Biden, could fire members of those independent federal agencies because they have so much power now. They didn't back in the day. But on the Federal Reserve Board, they're probably going to say the Fed is different and he could not fire this commissioner for cause without even giving her a chance to have a hearing. So those are the big 4. But again, there's a gun case, there's election law cases, there's a case involving temporary protected status, a dozen more, and they're all going to be something. So get ready, Mugo. We're going to have a lot to talk about on Thursday and next week, too, for sure. I don't think they will finish on Thursday, but we'll find out on Thursday.
All right, Jan Crawford, we'll see you on Thursday. Thank you so much for your time today.